Hello, today I'm going to share with you what I learned this semester at Fulton Block. The 10 topics I will be discussing are the 7 structures of best practice, Bloom's taxonomy, Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, fluency, comprehension strategies, qualities of powerful and authentic social studies, the reading process, the 10 themes of social studies, vocabulary, and professional writing. I practiced using the 7 structures of best practice in many ways throughout the semester. The ones I feel I utilize the most are collaborative activities, representing to learn, and formative reflective assessment. I used collaborative activities almost every day, especially when teaching fluency and inquiry circles. I created activities that allowed my students to work together, whether it be playing a game as a group, working together to complete an activity, or each completing a task and then coming together to put it all together. An example of when I used collaborative activities was when I had 2 students watching a recording of themselves doing a cold read as a group and then analyze and make goals to improve on the next cold read. This allowed the students to receive feedback from others in a supportive environment. I used the strategy representing to learn in my inquiry circle when they completed their final project. They used what they had learned about the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to make a candy bar wrapper that had many elements of the story on it. They were given a checklist and required to write a setting, a question, a connection, and many other things. A time when I used formative reflective assessment was in fluency. When my students were learning the terms expression, accuracy, and rate, they completed exit slips at the end of our lesson asking them to define the word and give an example of what it sounds like. One of the goals that I have had since my first block was to increase the amount and quality of the questions I ask my students during lessons. I feel that in the last year, I have really improved on this. Bloom's taxonomy is a tool I've used to improve in this area. This semester, we have learned that the higher levels are better for students. I have tried to ask less remembering questions and more analyzing and evaluating questions. Examples of questions I have asked in my inquiry circle in particular include, how does this book connect to your life? If Charlie had not found the last golden ticket, how might the ending have been different? Why do you think Willy Wonka had his factory closed for so many years? And if you found the ticket, what would you have done? I also asked, if you could meet one of the characters, which questions would you ask them? This semester, I was able to incorporate many levels of Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences into my teaching. Using various multiple intelligences allows students to learn in more than one way, making it more likely they will learn in the way that works best for them. Looking back, I think I focused the most on visual spatial, interpersonal, and bodily kinesthetic. I used visual spatial in all subject areas I taught this semester, especially vocabulary, in my literacy placement. In my opinion, when teaching students vocabulary, it helps to discuss what the word actually means, how they can use it, and what it is. To assist them in learning the words, we often drew pictures as a representation. Some of the words the students drew were difficult for them, but those words promoted deeper level thinking. A few words that the students drew pictures of include mass, binoculars, and non-renewable. Because I taught small groups this semester, I incorporated a lot of group activities. Sharing information, giving feedback, and having group discussions is something that I feel very passionate about. I feel that including these activities into daily lessons is important in building community and developing social skills. I try to incorporate at least some element of bodily kinesthetic activities into each lesson I teach. An example of when I used this element this semester was with my fluency group. After the cold read, when I analyzed what they needed to work on that week, we would occasionally use the expression cards. Most of the cards I have include movement. Examples include speaking and dancing like a robot while reading, and snapping your fingers and reading with rhythm. Using movement helps to keep students engaged and active in the lesson. I really enjoyed working with my fluency group this semester. I had to practice being flexible a lot in the beginning when one student was having truancy issues. It was difficult to plan, not knowing if he was going to be there or not. Unfortunately, he moved, so I only had 2 girls in my group. I used a variety of activities to teach 3 essential skills to my students. My 3 main focuses were rate, accuracy, and expression. Rate means reading quickly, not too fast and not too slow. An example of a strategy that I used to teach rate was when we played a game using different cards that the students pulled. Each card determined if they needed to read fast, slow, or just right. This allowed the students to have exposure to all levels of reading. One of my favorite activities I did this semester with my students was the Running Records Cold Read Analysis activity. As they did the cold read, I documented their miscues. Then they analyzed the running record sheet. They looked at the mistakes they made and from there thought of a strategy to try to avoid that next time. They learned a lot and were able to set goals, which is important to their self-improvement. As I mentioned earlier, I taught expression to my fluency group. The students loved practicing fluency in this way. One way I used expression was by doing reader's theater with my students. They needed to adjust their voice according to the punctuation marks at the end of the sentence. This gave them good practice speaking aloud and also allowed them to practice their punctuation. Although I did not have much opportunity to focus on teaching comprehension strategies much this semester, I did think about how I could use it in the future. There are 12 strategies, but all of them could be incorporated just by reading a simple children's book. In my future classroom, I would have my students activate their background knowledge by looking at the cover of the book and reflect on what they know about the subject. The students would make connections throughout the book to their personal lives. They can also determine importance by reflecting on the characters and events in the book. A few other important strategies that could be practiced by reading a book aloud are predicting, questioning, and summarizing. Students can guess what is going to happen, ask questions throughout the book, and explain the main events. Comprehension strategies can be used in any subject and should be practiced often. Throughout my time in social studies, I kept the 5 qualities of social studies in mind and tried to include them into my daily teaching. The 5 qualities of powerful and authentic social studies are meaningful, integrative, value-based, challenging, and active. I feel that the 5th grade group did a really nice job about incorporating these into our daily lessons. We made social studies integrative when we incorporated math, art, and even literacy into our lessons. We also made it value-based when we gave students a reason to study explorers and the reason they came to the New World. We did this by connecting events in history, such as the spread of smallpox, to the spread of Ebola today. Those are just a few of the ways we incorporated the 5 qualities of social studies into our daily teaching. The reading process is a series of 5 steps used in reading. The steps are pre-reading, reading, responding, exploring, and applying. We used all of these in my inquiry circle group when we read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. In the pre-reading stage, we activated our background knowledge about the book by thinking back to what we remember about the movie. We also discussed how we thought the book was going to be different than the movie. Then we read the book. After reading, we responded by having grand conversations about what we read. Next, in the exploring stage, we discussed story elements and asked questions about the text. In the final stage, we applied what we have learned by creating our candy wrapper project. There are many activities and students can do in addition to reading that will help them boost their knowledge. A very valuable thing I have learned is that you can incorporate reading and books into any subject. There is no limit. The 10 themes of social studies are something that we learned about a lot this semester. The themes come from the National Curriculum Standards of Social Studies. We used a few of these in our 5th grade teaching on a daily basis. The ones we focused on the most were power, authority, and governance, and individuals, groups, and institutions. We discussed power, authority, and governance when we talked about the religion and power in Europe during the time of exploration. We learned about what rules and laws there were as well as who ruled in each country. We addressed individuals, groups, and institutions when we were learning about teaching the 8 explorers who came to the New World. We discussed what motivated these individuals as well as where they came from. I really enjoyed teaching vocabulary this semester. The students were great and got a lot out of the activities. One thing I wish we could have practiced more is word decoding strategies. These are skills and practices that students can use to learn an unknown word. Strategies include chunking it, rereading it, or looking at the pictures. One way that I could teach word decoding strategies in the future is to model it. I could choose a book and do a read aloud and show how I figure out the unknown words. Students would watch me and then practice this in their own reading. I learned a lot about motivation and engagement in literacy because I chose it for my topic for my professional writing papers. I found out that when teachers promote engagement through fun activities, make learning relevant, enhance intrinsic motivation through autonomy, create strong student and teacher relationships, and illuminate the value and purpose of reading, students' literacy skills and scores will likely improve. Students of all ages will feel cared for and important in the classroom, driven to succeed, and will know why they are doing what they're doing. This is what teachers call a success. I tried to remember to practice all of these things in my groups throughout the semester. I feel that the group I had the most success with in these areas was inquiry. They were excited to come each day and even did research outside of class. I had a great time learning and teaching this semester at Fulton. I enjoyed learning new things and practicing things I already knew. I know I will take this information with me and use it in the future. Thank you.